Be sure to get your Flare naming service, domains, as well as sign up for Merlin. This next panel is going to be about blockchain, real estate, and carbon credits. Panelists include David Spring of Liquid Acre. We also have Boone from Blockchain Laboratories. And this panel will be moderated by the one and only, the greatest host of the Good Morning Crypto Show, Abs. Let's give him a round of applause. Knock him dead. Knock him dead, Spring. Awesome.
Hello, hello, hello.
Check.
Awesome, guys. So we got some great topics that we're going to talk about. Carbon credits on the XRPL is the main topic of conversation. But before we do that, I want to give our guests a chance to introduce themselves. So let's start with you, David.
My name is David Spring with Liquid Acre. I'm their Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder. So we're here to talk a little bit about fractionalized real estate using special purpose vehicles to transfer legal ownership and title to tokenized assets. And we're about to get launched here soon, and we're excited to share this opportunity with everybody.
Boone, I'd love to give you a chance to talk as well, and I'm going to throw you your first question. Actually, I'll throw it after you explain.
Awesome. Boone Bergsma, founder and CEO of Blockchain Laboratories. We're building SaaS for tokenization and primarily focused right now on the ESG markets and building 2 carbon credit registries on the XRP ledger. One called Carbon Land Trust, which was a wave 1 and 2 recipient, and another one called Intrinsic Methods.
I read a really interesting article about how Ripple right now has already invested $100 million into the carbon credit market, and they're anticipating that it could go up over 260,000% by the year 2030 for carbon credits. So the question that I have for you is, why do you think the XRPL is positioned to take advantage of this new innovation?
Good question. So I'm a business person, I think more than I'm a coder, and so I really looked at all these networks when we were looking at a solution to build a carbon credit registry on. And it was very important to us that energy usage, carbon footprint, all of that of the network was like a key thing that we looked into. And XRP Ledger, has one of the lowest energy use cases, and then they also went ahead of that and started buying renewable energy credits to offset their energy usage. So we were attracted to XRP Ledger because of the speed, the scalability, but also more than that, just the whole focus they had on being carbon neutral as well.
Amazing. And what got you inspired to take initiative in the carbon credit market originally?
So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a hippie tree hugger, and I love nature, and I saw lots of money coming in. I'm also a marketing technologist, and I've been in marketing technology for about 14 years with a focus on corporate social responsibility. And I saw that businesses were already spending billions of dollars on carbon credits, and as you said, that's projected to someday be trillions of dollars potentially. And I saw that brands were buying a lot of worthless, in my opinion, bullshit carbon credits that weren't doing anyone or nature any good. And we wanted to use technology to bring trust and transparency to this market, but also really bring high value, nature positive impact. And so both the registries we're building, just as much as the technology is a high priority, so is the environmental impact.
Fascinating. David, I'd love for you to talk about your project in general, and there's so much that goes into it. Do you think you could just start with land ownership and kind of explain how that process works?
Yeah, generally, at least historically speaking, owning investment property has been a limited accessibility to many people. It's even been not only financially discriminatory, but historically, not just income discriminatory, but discriminatory to certain groups of people. And because of that, we're trying to break that mold. We're trying to make it to where people can not necessarily have to go to a bank, find financing, learn a lot about real estate, acquire the property, and then put it under contract and repair it and deal with tenants and maintenance and all these things in order to reap the benefits of generational wealth. We're trying to fractionalize it to where anybody, whether you work at McDonald's or Walmart as a greeter, can have access to generational wealth by buying these fractional shares of property. So we're trying to restore that kind of access to it, so building generational wealth for anybody.
And what made you decide to take advantage of the XRPL?
So the XRPL is unique in 2 capacities to us. So first of all, it's the gas fees that Boone had just talked about. In order to offer small fractions of these ownerships, it has to be super efficient. So right now with typical regulatory compliance, it costs more than the benefit of the token that you're giving people. So for example, if we're making 4% on a transaction fee and someone's only buying $10, then we're making a very small percentage of revenue from that. And if we're paying even more for regulatory compliance aspects, we could be spending $4 or $5. So it's a terrible business model. It's not sustainable. So XRP was appealing in that aspect. The other thing is a community. We're creating a marketplace. And the XRP community understands value. They understand that how money works, that money is stored value. And to have an educated community is a very easy way to not necessarily sell, but to promote something that's genuine and authentic and has tangible and real value to it that can be sustained and naturally is delta neutral hedging against inflation, which we're all very worried about. So because we have such a smart community, we think this is the type of community we want to get started with. We want to bring people in and show them that they can preserve value on a tokenized blockchain, that we can do a lot of social good, and that people who want to learn and invest in real estate can do so on one aspect, but if they don't have the time or the knowledge and they want to just deploy capital, they can do so in a capacity that they have generational wealth stored on tokenized assets.
So let's say I only had $120 and I'm looking to get into real estate. Am I able to do that through your platform?
You can. When we launch.
Yep.
So, having a marketplace, we need people and we need properties. So, and there has to be a balance between the two. If somebody comes and says, hey, David, can you deploy $200 million tomorrow? I could do that, but it won't be near as efficient as if I only have to deploy 10 million. So we're trying to build a community of people that can, oracles that can ensure that we maintain our profitability. My standard for buying investment properties historically has been, I need to be able to sell it tomorrow for more than I paid for it today, because it's a discounted property. And then we do a value adjustment, and then we disperse that value. So in order to maintain that level of efficiency, we have to find a scalable component to it, and that deals with education and finding people that can understand those concepts.
So before I go back to Boone, I'd love to kick it right back to you. Let's say somebody is interested in the tokenized real estate. Where can they get started? It's an intimidating process, so maybe you can talk about your platform and how they can get eased into it.
Yeah, so liquidacre.com is our website. You can go there and subscribe right now. We haven't launched the initial offer, but we are just speaking with people who have experience in real estate investing. We're also very interested in speaking with people who haven't, but they've always been curious about it. So feel free to subscribe there. That's a good way to get started. And then we're still actually raising money for our capital. We currently have raised a little over $2.5 million, so we have more than enough to completely fund the development of the software, to staff our team, to go through an entire market thing. Our burn rate is going to be substantially lower than our launch rate. So we're good, we don't need any more money, but we still have a Reg D offering that's open to where accredited investors can come in and invest, and 100% of the revenue that's coming in from here on out is going to be allocated towards investment properties that we're just going to list on the marketplace. So if anybody's interested in that, you can reach out to me, David Spring at liquidacre.com.
Fascinating. So when you talk about ESG, when we have a great conversation earlier, what are some of the benefits of somebody taking advantage of carbon credits early in the market? Because it's yet to be established, right? It's still a little bit controversial.
Absolutely. So, there's two carbon credit markets. There's the mandatory carbon market, which is a very tough, stringent market. And then there's the voluntary carbon market where, it's a much smaller market today, but that's the one you're talking about that's projected to have a 100x growth by 2050. And so when you look at we're talking about analyzing credits and the impact that they have. If you're a brand right now and you're trying to hedge against rising prices in the future and stuff, and I'm not saying that I agree with this, but there's even talks about in the future, like personally you'll have a certain amount of carbon credits, that you're allowed to do. So if it ever got to that place, even for individuals or whatever, the beauty about investing in the carbon markets today is the prices are lower than they're expected to be in 5 years or 10 years or whatever that time frame is. And so really evaluating high value ESG related projects and accumulating carbon credits from high quality projects now potentially could save you a lot of money in the future if you're a business. So if even with, no matter how carbon efficient you become, so if your business starts here and this is your carbon footprint, and you start using renewable energies and you get here, and then you find another supplier that lowers, you're never going to get to zero. A business is always going to have a carbon footprint, and the only way to authentically get to zero is you'll have to buy carbon removal credits to remove whatever that is that you couldn't offset in other ways. And so if you figured that number is going to be 10,000 or 100,000, and you know that you're going to have to retire that many credits every year, you know those credits are going to cost twice as much next year.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you buy 5 or 10 years worth now, so that way potentially when down the road, it's not going to cost you 10 times than it's going to cost you today.
Fascinating.
And I'd also say, just to finish on that real quick too, the beauty of that too is if your business did find ways to even get lower and you didn't need those potentials, well, now you have carbon credits that you can feed back into the market for probably twice or 3 times as much as you paid for them in the beginning.
So a quick follow-up I have for you. I know there's a lot of business owners and there's truck drivers and a bunch of people who own traditional companies. Are they incentivized to get involved in this market early, or do you think they're going to wait until regulation forces them to comply before they get involved?
I don't know if there's a whole lot of incentives right now besides just like being able to tell your consumers, you know, like you're doing this good thing because you care about the environment. There's not like government incentives or anything like that for being an early mover right now, but I think thinking about it right now is smart because it is coming, you know. You can just tell by worldwide government policy that they're pushing this agenda. So you can either be aware of it and be prepared, or you can be, you know, scrambling to catch up.
What do you find most exciting about what you're doing right now? Some of the most unique aspects of what you're building. I'd love for you to share.
I think it's partnering up with people like Boone, right? Because ultimately carbon credits are derived from land. Everything comes from land. I love what I saw with Glint. Glint offers a really unique perspective as well. But gold is equal everywhere you go, price-wise, right?
Yeah.
Other than accessibility. So it's great for being tethered to a currency. With land, it's different. Like one piece of property could appreciate more than another piece of property. So if you have one token that represents ownership of all those properties, you have like waste that happens between them where it can depreciate the token. You see that a lot with real estate investment trusts, which is a conventional method to invest in real estate fractionally. And so we're just trying to find a better way to do that. And we figure we could do that on a marketplace and kind of enter some economic game theory by bifurcating short-term financing liquidity pool where people could get 12 to 15% because we use their money times over to acquire these properties. And then we list those on the marketplace. And then people can borrow that. But the opportunities that extend beyond that are monetizing that asset. If we buy a blank piece of land, we could speak with Boone about monetizing the carbon credits available, and those dividends could be passed down to the shareholders, so an API integration or something like that. There's just so much opportunity to be more efficient through the blockchain. I think that's probably the most exciting part about it.
And when you look at the market overall, do you find that there's more regulatory hurdles in the United States as opposed to overseas? I don't know if you've tried to extend yourself that far, but what do you see when you look worldwide?
We have, yeah. We've been trying to, we've looked at everything. As the chief strategy officer, I graduated from law school later in life, but initially I was a real estate investor for several hundred houses, 500 or 600 houses. And, you know, so dealing with that and a lot of the obstacles that come with that, they're different, but it's still the same process to figure out a way to go over, under, around, through, or whatever we got to get to the objective. So the regulatory compliance issues are not only expensive and time-consuming, and they inhibit it. I get why they exist, but there is a point where it's just not, it's counterproductive, right, or abusive even, and harmful to people to where it's over-regulated. So internationally, it's great, but still, even if U.S. users, I mean, who was it? KuCoin just got a Wells notice. Like you could be DeFi all you want, but if your user base is in the U.S., it feels like there's this infinite reach that the U.S. has, and it's really frustrating to deal with because a lot of regulation inhibits free enterprise, and that's the beauty of what created America is free enterprise, is our ability to do things and benefit people and work together and bring this community and governance. Right? Government is supposed to be governance. We can't vote with our money anymore, and that's wrong. So we need to figure out a better way to do things.
So switching it up just a little bit, let's talk about tokenized real estate. When I looked at some of the fundamentals behind what you guys are doing, it seems like realtors around the world should be very nervous, and that's an understatement. When you're able to basically complete real estate sales, not only without a broker, but you're able to save all those fees. You can charge 2.5% from each end on a traditional real estate deal. So maybe you can elaborate on that and how realtors are reacting to your product.
Yeah, a lot of them are very scared of it because if you can have an NFT that represents ownership, you don't need to do a title search. There's no closing costs. There's no title insurance. There's so many fees that are eliminated, right? The realtor fee themselves. The realtors show the property and transact it, but it streamlines it and reduces that. It makes it less friction. There's less friction in it, so it's more efficient. But yeah, that is scary. I think ultimately there's still going to be a person-to-person component to it, especially with property that's being acquired for living in. You're going to want to walk it, and that takes time, and there still needs to be that personal connection. But with regard to a lot of these institutions that profit from the unknown, I think the educational aspect and the accessibility of information to everybody around the globe, it's definitely going to be a revolutionary component.
When I look around what's happening in real estate today, we're seeing BlackRock and these global companies buying up retail investments all over the place. So the fractionalized real estate seems like a way for the retail investor to actually compete with some of these billion and trillion dollar corporations. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely. So historically, in order to invest with Blackstone, you have to be an accredited investor. And we were discussing something we call Operation Ahab, where we're trying to kill the whales. And possibly even limiting this, and no offense if you're a whale, per se, but we just want to allow people to have, we just want to allow people to have access to this, and stability comes from not having certain people in a controlling position. If you have a whale that can dictate the market flux just by selling, that diminishes that governance of all the people by giving one person, and corruption or power corrupts people. I mean, we're humans. We have a special ability to ruin even the best of things.
Yeah.
So
when I look at the carbon credit a little bit, it seems like it can be incentivized for people who are, I guess, better financially off. Do you see a day where people like us are going to be more incentivized to move into carbon credits? Does that make sense?
Possibly. So I think, again, my biggest personal passion around this whole project is that I see the potential to use this money to fund like real, powerful ecological restoration and conservation projects, right? So Carbon Land Trust only will issue carbon credits from biodiverse forest land that's being enrolled into perpetual conservation. So when a brand buys a Carbon Land Trust or a person buys a Carbon Land Trust carbon credit, they can know that they're creating old growth forests for future generations, right?
Yeah.
And same type of thing from the intrinsic methods model. They're using a patented system called Root Maker that the trees that they're growing have a 95+% survivability rate, and they sequester 200 to 300% more carbon during the first 9 years of their life. So I think it's more about, if you care about nature and the environment, you just will want to do it because this is a way that you can get credit for doing that. So right now, there's lots of ways to support nature. You can donate, you can give money and stuff, but that's kind of the end of the thing. In this model, at least you personally can get a carbon credit in return for that. And whether you use that for yourself or your business and retire it for the claim, or you sell that for something else, at least it's a way to be economically engaged in this caring for nature and restoring ecological balance on the planet.
And we only got maybe 2 minutes here, but I'd love to hammer this point home. For somebody who finds what you said interesting, and they're wondering, well, why should I get into the carbon market today? I know you addressed it a little bit earlier. Maybe you can double down on that and explain why it's so important to be an early mover when it comes to carbon credits.
Well, I think if you just pay attention to any of like the COP28 and World Economic Forums and different things like that, if you listen to the way they talk, it's coming. So whether you like it or not, if you have a company in the future, you're going to be required to report on your carbon footprint. You're probably going to be required to offset it in some way. And I would say within a few years following that, if you're an individual, it's also going to start flowing into individuals' lives. And so, again, it's just about, it's like anything. Instead of putting your head in the sand and thinking, oh, yeah.
I'll wait till it happens.
Yeah, why not just start paying attention and learning about it now, and then just like, you know, all of us wish we would have bought XRP when we very first heard about it, you know? We'd all be like singing a whole different song right now.
Right. It's a great point. So for anybody who found that interesting, where can they get involved in your project? Can you let them know
so
where to go?
we're also kind of in the same boat as Liquid Acres. So like we were hoping that Carbon Land Trust was already going to be launched this month, but really because we're also a United States-based company, we've had to like double down on the whole legal and really get things nailed down tight. But if you go to carbonlandtrust.com, you can sign up to be notified as soon as the registry goes live. And hopefully by the end of June, you'll be able to buy carbon credits from conservation projects throughout the United States.
Thank you, guys. That's all we have for you. Great job, guys. That was fun.
Appreciate it. Yeah.